Welcome back, everyone, to the long-awaited second episode of the What's Buzzin podcast of the Hive Podcast Network. We are back better than ever and bigger than ever because we have a new face joining the crew. Nick Frias, welcome to the What's Buzzin crew.
Appreciate it, buddy. You guys reached out to me, said, "Hey, you guys we need another member to join the podcast. You want to go?" And I said, "Absolutely."
It's awesome to have you. And just disclaimer for future reference, not every episode will necessarily have all four of us. We're gonna try to have all four of us in every episode, but sometimes it may vary between just three of us or four of us. So that's just a quick disclaimer for future reference going forward with the podcast. Like I said, long awaited second episode of the What's Buzzin' podcast, and today we're gonna get right into it, fellas. The NHL season is right around the corner. It's right here. Uh, Under a month away from the first night of regular season, and we're going to start with the Western Conference standings predictions. So we're going to go through to our standings predictions for the Central, the Pacific, and the wild card race, and then afterwards we're going to circle on back and go through each team and give you guys our MVP for this season, who we think is going to be the most valuable player to each team, and then the biggest X factor player for every team that we think going into this year. So, fellas, we're going to start in the Central Division with eighth in the Central. Who do we all have at eighth? I will start off with Chicago as my eighth.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a theme. I have
Yeah.
the Blackhawks as well.
New guy here decided to go with something different.
New guy.
I went with the Minnesota Wild, actually.
Wow.
Wild.
Yes,
Wow, that's pretty bold. Okay, so we got three
Yeah.
Chicagos, three Wild. Nick, why? Why the Wild?
I mean, I think the Central is going to be like pretty loaded. Obviously, like the Preds, Utah, even like the Blackhawks and the Blues kind of improved this year. And Minnesota didn't really make like a lot of acquisitions this year. So I just think from a team perspective, I'm not in love with them, especially on their defense. I mean, Jared Spurgeon is coming back from hip and back injuries, and he's 34. Their defense, beside Brodin and Faber, isn't really great. I don't like Jacob Middleton as a second pair defenseman, so a little worried on the defense. And then I think their forwards are a little shallow. Marcus Johansson might be the second line left winger. So yeah, I'm not high on Minnesota. I seems like I'm the only one here that has them at eight. So I'm curious on why you guys
Doesn't
went the
seem like
Blackhawks.
doesn't seem like you definitely are.
Yeah, it is. But
So the go ahead.
I'm just like I said, I'm curious to see y'all's take on the Blackhawks, and then when we get to the Blackhawks, for me, I'm curious to see where we have similarities and differences.
Yeah, I mean, Noah and Justin, do you wanna talk about the
Yeah.
Blackhawks? Because I'm pretty sure everything you're gonna
Yeah.
say is pretty much what I'm about to
Yeah.
say too.
No, I think I know a lot of people like their additions they had this summer, but I think their team is just Bedard still. And I think
Yeah.
the big thing about Bedard is I think he'll become a superstar next season. I think he already had like glimpses of that, but I think next season he's over 100 points no matter what his line mates are. But the Central Division is still too good where the Hawks can't really do any damage. That's my thing.
Yeah, I'd agree. I do love the acquisitions for the Blackhawks, but I still think they're behind some of the other uh kind of just outside the wild card teams, as in like St. Louis and all those teams that go that just missed the playoffs last year. I think the Blackhawks are going to stay pretty similar to where they were at the end of last year.
Yeah, pretty much a broken record. What you guys said is exactly my thoughts as well. They made some good additions. They made some progress towards a better team, but the Central Division's still too deep when you have those teams who almost competed for a wild card spot. St. Louis, Minnesota, even Arizona last year, Utah coming up this year. I think they're going to be a competitive team for sure. So Chicago's just getting better, but they're still in a tough spot. And I don't know. I have them last in the Central, but we'll see. You guys will see once we get to the wild card race that I actually have them not too far down the wild card race because I think the bottom of the Pacific is going to be very bad. So we'll get to that later. But let's move on now to the seventh spot in the Central Division. Let's see if the new guy got another bold take. What's seventh in Pacific or sorry,
I
Central?
it's not bold. This is where I have the Blackhawks.
Yeah.
Not a lot of high end talent, I guess, but yeah, I got the Blackhawks here. Where do you guys got?
Noah?
I'm going Utah. That team does not scream talent, and I know, a lot of people like I'm gonna call them Arizona right now. I know Arizona had some good glimpses last season, and despite all the off ice issues, they're still not a very good team. And I think Beniers last season was super disappointing. Kind of reminded me of like Stutzla's second season or third season, where you thought he would take that extra step, but he just was kind of whatever. And I just think their depth lacks a lot.
Justin?
Mine is exact opposite of Nick's. I've got Minnesota right here. I believe they have like $14 million in dead cap this
Yeah.
year. I just think it's going to be hard to make things work. It doesn't make any sense for them to really compete. I see another good year to Kirill Kaprizov. Brock Faber might have a sophomore slump, but there's not too much to be excited about.
Well, we all have different teams at the seventh spot in the Central because I have the St. Louis Blues at this spot in the Central Division. I just their top end talent I don't love. Really, when you look at their top end performers, it's Robert Thomas and like Pavel Buchnevich, and that really doesn't do it for me. And then their defense is like it's been altered a lot. Like since they won the cup in 2019, their defense is nowhere near the same. Like their
Yeah.
top pair is listed as Nick Leddy and Colton Parayko, which is all right, but it's nothing wowing. And when you look at Jordan Binnington, it's either he has a good season or a bad season, and not vice versa, but similar in his games. Like he either has a really good game and like almost puts up a shutout or he's pretty bad and he ends up getting pulled or allows
Yeah.
way too many goals than he needs to. So I don't like the top end talent of this Blues team, and I just don't think they're going to be as competitive as even last year. I think they're going to take a step backward, even though they did add Broberg and Holloway, which is a bit of a step in the right direction, but I think they overpaid for those guys. But let's move on. Six in the Central, Noah. Who do you got there?
Oh, sorry. I got the Minnesota Wild. So yeah,
A lot of
we
flip
got
flop here.
we got 8, 7, 6. Okay, yeah, Minnesota Wild. I just think like they're just such a mediocre team, and they've always been mediocre. And
Yeah.
like this year, I just don't see them doing anything special. That's not really a big explanation.
Justin?
All right, this is where I have the Utah Hockey Club. I do really like what they've done in the offseason. I just not sure if they're quite at a playoff level yet,
Yeah.
but I think there's definitely a lot of room to grow there. So it's an exciting up and coming team. They're just not there yet.
Yeah.
Let me just back that because I have Utah at six as well. I like what they're doing. I like the steps that they're taking. Sergachev and John Marino are great ads on the back end. Their defense is going to be much better. They're going to allow way less goals than ever before, but they're just not there yet. Like you said, they're just not quite developed into a playoff caliber team yet. I think they will get there probably in a couple of years once teams like Nashville, maybe Winnipeg start to fall off a little bit. But yeah, Utah at six is a no-brainer for me. Nick, what do you
Yep.
got?
I got St. Louis here. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think they're a bad team necessarily. Like I do
No.
love the first line of Kyrou, Thomas, and Neighbors, but the Central's just so competitive that
Mm.
I don't think that they're able to compete necessarily with some of the higher end teams that we'll get to later. I really like their forwards. I think they have some good depth there. I like the Holloway edition, obviously, but the defense is questionable. Nick Leddy first line pairing, not really confident. And even Broberg, like he's played 101 total games since
Yeah.
his rookie year, and
He
we're
was good in
paying
the
him like
playoffs
a
though.
well, that's including the playoffs. He was good in the playoffs, but
Oh,
10 games, right?
oh,
So
yeah.
like, and I think it's the amount of money they're paying him. You're paying him like a proven top four defenseman
Yeah.
when he
Yeah.
isn't. So
Yeah.
Right.
there's a lot of question marks on the defense, and like you guys said with Bennington, it's either really good or not so good. So it's a lot of question marks with the St. Louis Blues, to just put it bluntly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty fair. That's pretty accurate to what I had them at seven. So let's move on now to number five, and I believe the only one who hasn't gone first yet is Justin. So it's your time to shine.
Yes, sir. And this is where I have the St. Louis Blues.
There it
Um,
is.
you said there's a lot of questions. I think they're going to be answered in the right way. Jordan Binnington had a good year last year. I think he's going to build off of that. I think they have a lot of underrated pieces. I love Robert Thomas as a first line center. You have Buchnevich on the second line now. I think Justin Falk's very underrated. I think they'll have a pretty good year. Not a playoff team though.
Noah.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Justin. I think fifth. I was actually gonna initially put them last. I just then I realized like Holloway, Broberg, they had some youth, but in my opinion, I still think Krug being out for the season's a pretty big deal. And even though he's not really where he was in Boston or whatever, and even at his prime, I just think it's a big deal. But yeah, that team just they have a lot of holes, and like you said, Boots, like with Bennington and how inconsistent he is, and he can give you an all-star night, and the next night he's
Yeah.
like screaming at the fans.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think fifth, they're not making the playoffs.
Yeah, for me, I have the Wild, so much higher than where Nick has them for sure. Still, I think a very competitive team. When you look at Kaprizov, he's an all-star, really. I like a lot of their pieces. Like they've done a really underrated job at drafting. When you look at like guys like Matt Boldy, Marco Rossi, like they are now players playing in their top six, and not because they need them to be playing in their top six, because they want them to be playing in their top six. And I think that's the key difference. I think a lot of it is going to hinge on their goaltending for sure. Gustafson is going to have to be good, because similar to what I said about Bennington, you can get good Gustafson, you can get bad Gustafson. So him and Fleury, also Fleury getting late into his career, we're going to see what he has left in the tank. But I still like their defense is still above average to me. When you look at like Faber is probably going to take another step. Middleton, Spurgeon is a question mark for sure with the injuries and the age getting up there as well. But I still like the overall product that the Wild have. So I have them at 5. Nick, what do you got?
So here's another shocker
God.
here, I feel like. I actually have the Winnipeg Jets at 5.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
after last year's playoff performance, I kind of lost all hope in Winnipeg, if I'm completely honest with you. Just seeing how Connor Hellebuck played against Colorado and just seeing the team as a whole,
It's
just
bad.
they collapsed. And on paper, I think they're a good team. I think when you look at the names, obviously you have Scheifele, Connor, Velarde, if healthy, Perfetti, Ehlers, right? The defense is not bad. I mean, like Morrissey's kind of the staple piece, but when you have Hellebuck, I guess you don't need necessarily the strongest of defensemen. But even looking at their left side, like Dylan Sandberg as their second line left defenseman, Colin Miller on the third, it's okay. But I expect a regression from Winnipeg, and yeah, I'm just not in love with this team. Uh, just left a sour taste in my mouth in the
Yeah,
playoffs last year against Colorado.
that's a fair
Hmm.
point, and a lot of those points are why, as we move on to 4 here, is why I have Winnipeg at 4. Not as low as you per se, but I think they are going to take a bit of a regression. Hellebuck's going to have to be much better than what he showed in that playoff series against Colorado, 1,000%, like you mentioned. They have still solid pieces, but I feel like there's other teams improving more drastically than Winnipeg has been in the last year or two. And when you look at like Nashville making some big ads like Stamkos and Marcia, so Colorado and Dallas are both juggernauts in the Central Division. I just don't see them getting that high up into a divisional spot in the Central Division. So for all the same reasons, pretty much you said, Nick, I got Winnipeg at 4. What do you have at 4, Noah?
Jets.
Jets as well.
It's not much different than fifth, but I think when you have a goalie like Hellebuck, and I
Yeah,
personally think he's been the best goalie in the last 7 years. I know it's hard to say like Vasilevsky, 3 straight finals, but consistently on a team like Winnipeg, he's carried them to the playoffs almost every year. And when you have a goaltender like that, top three without a doubt, and I think he's one. You're going to be at least top four in your division. If not, then you have a different problem. Whether they make the playoffs, that's a discussion for later.
yeah.
Well, I personally think you guys are doubting the Winnipeg Jets. You did it last year. You can do it again
Wow.
this year. It's all right. It's going to be the Nashville Predators, I think, in this 4th spot. I do really like what they did. Don't get me wrong, and I think they'll be a good team. It's just I think it's going to take a second for them to get going with the new additions. But outside of that, you look at they have all the pieces. Great goalie, great coach. Roman Yossi's one of the best defensemen in the NHL. So I think this will be a really good Nashville team. I just don't know if they'll come out of the gate as hot as some of the other teams.
By coach, do you mean Rick Bowness? Because he's out now. So I
No,
believe.
Andrew Burnett in Nashville.
Oh, in Nash.
I have
Oh,
Nashville.
Nashville. Oh, right.
Mhm.
Yeah, you took
Yes.
Nashville. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah. Yeah. No
Nick,
worries.
do you have Winnipeg? Do you have Nashville? What do you have? Oh, wait, you
Uh,
you already used
yeah,
Winnipeg
I
at
already
5.
already used
Yeah.
Winnipeg,
So
so
who do you
I, I
got?
I got Utah. I'm on the Utah hype train.
What?
Wow.
I love their offseason. I love the Sergachev acquisition. I love Marino. I
Wow.
think this team is just I think it's very underrated. I mean, Clayton Keller, I don't think gets the respect he deserves. Nick Schmaltz, I don't think gets the respect he deserves. I mean, Matthias Michelli, Josh Doan, they're very young. I mean, I haven't even brought up Logan Cooley yet. They have so many young pieces that I expect to take a massive jump this year. And I think Utah is going to surprise a lot of people. I think it's going to be a great story. Moving from Arizona all the way to Utah, making the I'm not gonna give that away just yet. You might know one of my wildcard guys, but
Sneak peek.
I really do like Utah. I think there's a slight worry on the left side of their defense, which was a little stronger, and the goaltending. I don't know if we're gonna get the same numbers from Ingram and Vizmelka, but I'm all in on Utah this year.
That's crazy. I do like Utah and I like what they've been doing to make their team better, but that high in the division
It's high.
is kind of surprising for me.
Yeah.
But let's move into the divisional spots. So moving forward, these three teams that us respectively say are playoff teams, and they are going to be in the playoffs 1000% according to our standings at least. For me, I got Nashville. Just a step above Winnipeg in my opinion. I think they did more to improve their team last year or over the offseason compared to what the team was last year than like a Winnipeg per se, who I have just below them. Steven Stamkos and Marchessault listed on their second line is elite, really. Having those two caliber players on your second line. The first line they had of Forsberg, O'Reilly, and Nyquist was really good last year, and I don't expect them to be any worse this year. Their goaltending, you have Yossi, who is a top 5 D man. You got UC Saros, which is a stud goalie. They have all the pieces. And Andrew Burnett, like you said, Justin is a phenomenal coach. So Nashville at 3 is a no-brainer for me.
I'll piggyback off that. I got Nashville at 3-2. I mean,
Yeah.
similarly going off what you said. I mean, Stamkos and Marchessault on the second line, that's lethal. They have UC Saros, who's an elite goaltender. Roman
Yeah.
Yossi, one of the best.
They have the pieces.
Yeah, they have the pieces. I mean, like longevity wise, I don't know how much of those contracts will. I think it might hinder them a little later, but for right now, they're in win now mode in Nashville, and I like them as well. I have them at 3-2.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Avalanche at third.
Wow.
I've never been like I don't think the Avalanche are winning another cup with that core, in my opinion. I just think without Landeskog, he's so underrated to that team, and just their goaltending, they've always had issues. But I'm not really ripping on the team. I'm actually like my next point, and not to like spoil the next answer, but is Nashville, because I think Nashville's so good on paper now, and I think Saros will carry them, that they're just gonna bump out the Avalanche a little more. But the Avs proved everyone wrong against the Jets last season, right? In the playoffs. Like after they lost game one, like everyone thought they were done, right? I think like can we take a vote? Did everyone think the Avalanche were done in game one?
No,
I don't know.
not
It's
really.
the
I thought
I
they
don't
Avalanche.
think
were.
so.
I don't know.
No.
Maybe because I was
It's
too
the
high on the
Avalanche.
Jets. But yeah,
Well,
no,
for me, I thought the series was going 7, so that was
Yeah.
my
yeah.
thought
Yeah,
process.
I thought it was going 6-7 as well.
Okay, fair. Yeah, but I'm not big on the Avs this year.
Justin, who you got at 3?
And this is where I have the Winnipeg Jets. They have the best goalie in the league, guys. Connor Hellebuck. I know he had a hiccup against the Avalanche in the playoffs, but the Avs have always been, at least with the score, one of the best scoring teams in the NHL. It's real tough to keep 4 goals off the board when you're playing against the Avalanche. I really like what's in Winnipeg. Their defense is a bit of a question mark, but again, they're the best goalie in the NHL. Kyle Connor is Nikolai Ehlers are both very underrated forwards. I really like what's in Winnipeg. I don't see him being amongst the top teams, but I see them finishing in a comfortable spot in the Central, getting in the playoffs.
All fair points. Having them top 3 is not out of the realm of possibility in my mind. Obviously, I have them at 4, but moving on now to number 2 in the division, the top 2 teams. This is where I have Colorado. I think they still have all the pieces. I think that core is still there. It's obviously a hindrance not having Landeskog or Nichushkin on the roster because those are 2 big names for their top 6. But I think that's why a guy like Jonathan Drouin becomes so crucial now, because him playing with McKinnon, in my opinion, there's no better position or no better role for Jonathan Drouin in the National Hockey League than on Nathan McKinnon's wing. There's nothing better for him. There's no better situation for him to be in. They have all the pieces, like I said. McKinnon, MVP of the season last year. He could take another bid at MVP again this season. Georgiev, if he can just play solid enough, that defense, Taze Makar is one of the best pairings in the league. Still a well-coached team, still a good systematic team. They have the pieces. They have a deep lineup. Miles Wood, Ross Colton, both on the third line. I like that as a third line along with Logan O'Connor. So I see Colorado still being a dominant team in the Central, just not winning the division at 2. So who do you got at 2, Justin?
I've got the same exact team as you. I think it's pretty clear cut 1 and 2 teams in the Central, at least for most of us. But I think the core in Colorado is great with Nathan MacKinnon. You have the undisputed best defenseman in the NHL in Cale Makar.
Yeah.
And like I said, McKinnon's one of the best players in the NHL in his own right. And then Mikko Rantanen. I think as long as you have those three guys, you're going to be a top team in the NHL. The depth isn't where it was a couple years ago, but again, with that core, you should be just fine, as well as the complementary pieces they have.
Is it me?
Yeah, go for it,
Good.
buddy.
I'll go with Nashville. I think that team's too stacked right now. And yeah, Stamkos, like Marshall, so big ads. But I'm bigger on Brady Shea. That I think Yossi and Shea might be the best pairing in the league potentially next season.
Wow.
Like what's really better on paper? On paper, not talking about on the
Makar
ice.
and Taves.
Yeah, McCarthy.
Taze Makar.
Yeah, that's
I don't know. I think they have more of an offensive punch.
I don't know. Makar's Miles, not Miles. Makar's better than Yossi, and
Oh,
Taze is better than Shea.
sorry. I meant
the
defensive punch. So I think Yossi's better than
Taves is
all
the
the
best out of the four, I
defensive.
think.
Sorry.
I think Taves is the best out of the four, but
Yeah,
I'll let you
it's
you
debatable.
continue.
It's apples
You
and oranges,
continue.
but keep going.
Yeah, no, no matter what, my point is though, is that pair will carry them to the second spot. And I don't think they're gonna like kill the Avs in the regular season. It's gonna be like a point or two off the standings. But overall, I think they're gonna have that I don't want to say beginner's luck, but that roster's so fresh that they might have some firepower just because of how new it is. And also, I don't know if Saros will have the best season, but I think he's still a great goaltender that he'll do good enough for them to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, my number two, piggybacking off of, you're not 100% confident of Saros. I'm very confident in Jake Ottinger. That's why I have the Stars at number two, though. I like them. Great team. Their defense is great with Harley and Heiskanen. Then you got Lindell on the second pairing. I really like Logan Stankoven. I'm very high on Stankoven. So they're a good team. It wouldn't surprise me if they're one. I think Dallas and Colorado are basically 1A, 1B. They're going to
Yeah.
be, 2, 4, maybe 6 points ahead in or differential in the standings.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, they're a great team. I mean, you see Wyatt Johnson, he's looking like a young star. He already is. He's emerging into even a bigger role there. Robertson, obviously, the big pieces in Dallas. So I got him at two.
Yeah, I mean, they're the only team left I know for. Is it the three of us? Do we all
Yeah.
have Dallas
Yeah.
at one? Justin and Noah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
sir.
yeah. Dallas at one is a fair assumption for me. I think, like you said, Nick, the 1-2 is almost definitely Dallas, Colorado. I know Noah's got Colorado down at 3, but Dallas, Colorado are going to be divisional teams. They're going to finish in divisional spots at the end of this year. And if they don't, I'm sure we all will be shocked if one of those two teams doesn't finish in a divisional spot. But yeah, Dallas, deep. They have the star power. Heiskanen is one of the most underrated defensemen in the league. They have Jake Ottinger, one of the best goaltenders in the league. Well-coached team as well. I've said this a couple times about a couple teams, but really that is how it is. The top of the division are some very well-coached teams. So Dallas, I don't see any part of their team that I necessarily don't like. Maybe the bottom end of their defensemen have taken a bit of a hit this offseason. When you look at you have Labushkin and Dumba now in that bottom four. So that's not the best, but they're still serviceable guys. So for me, Dallas at one's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head there, Kerwin. Uh, Dallas has everything. They've got the forward stars, the forward depth, the defensive stars, the defensive depth, and usually a really good starting goalie in Jake Andre. He's inconsistent at times, but if he could be consistent, he's amongst the top in the NHL. I know they lose Joe Pavelski to retirement, but that opens up a spot for Logan Stankoven and Maverick Bourque, who were two of the best players in the AHL when they were down there. I just think Dallas has everything. I don't think there's a hole really on this team. Maybe the bottom of the defense, but I think that's something you can get over at the trade deadline.
Yeah. And I think just again, like I think Duchesne guys like Duchesne on the depth, like that, how is that your bottom six? You know what I mean? Like that's
Crazy.
just unreal. You can't have Duchesne is arguably a top liner on still some teams, in my opinion. So yeah, Dallas first.
I mean, I'll fight for Colorado a little bit. It's just hard not to bet against McKinnon,
It
McCarr,
is.
Rantanen. That's it's their top three. I'd rather have than Dallas's top three.
That's
And
fair.
the thing too is I think Georgiev was overused, and I think Colorado sees that. So I think Georgiev is going to be not as used in the regular season, and he should be a little more fresher for the playoffs to perform even better than, he was okay. So it's really, though, it comes down to McCarr, Rantanen, and McKinnon. Even without Nichushkin and Landeskog, I still like the Avs.
Question though, Nick, about that. You mentioned how Georgiev was overused in the regular season, and I do agree. But Colorado didn't really do anything to go out and change that or fix that. They still have Justus Annunen as the backup, and you can play him in games, but you don't necessarily want to give him too much of a workload because A, his skill, and B, just he hasn't played that many games before. So what do you think they do in terms of giving Georgiev less minutes?
Let's go Annunen. I think you have to
Just
trust
give it to
him.
him?
Yeah, I mean, he's not a bad goaltender. He's not one of the worst backups you can have in the league, right? Like I
Yeah.
still think there's something there in Annunen. I'm higher on him as a backup. I think he can even long term kind of have like that Gorgiev type role in the NHL where he goes from backup to being a starter. So I'm higher on Annunen. I think you see him get into 30 games, maybe 35, honestly, this year. So I trust the development of Annunen to, give some pressure off of Gorgiev.
Well, there are our standings you can see on screen now is our 1 through 8 of the Central Division. Now let's move on to the Pacific Division. Okay, last place in the Pacific Division. This shouldn't be hard. Fellas, it should be the same answer for all four of us. Is it please tell me it's San Jose.
Of course.
Uh,
Nick,
so
don't do
Wow.
it, Nick.
No, I'm with
um,
Don't
them.
do it.
It's
okay,
not San Jose for me either.
are you
That's
thinking of
ridiculous.
a Canadian team?
I am thinking of a Canadian team.
No
Of
way.
Calgary, perhaps?
Yeah, I think
What?
Knicks might have a little bias tied to it, but
Yeah, maybe.
There's no bias here. I mean, look on paper. The Calgary Flames are the worst team. They have Blake Coleman on their first line right wing. I mean, no disrespect to Blake Coleman, but he's not a first line right winger. Connor Zary, I mean, second line left winger. There's some potential
Yeah.
there, but I, I just don't know how you look at Calgary and be like, this team's better than San Jose. I like San Jose. I like their youth. I think the youth is better than some of the proven guys here. Don't get me wrong, they have Mackenzie Weegar and Rasmus Anderson on defense. That's great. Dustin Wolf should be good, but struggled a little bit last year, so a little uncertainty there. So yeah, I'm taking Calgary in last. I'm glad I have someone here to back me up. I like this.
yeah, I do agree with you. It's not that I think they're that much worse of a team than San Jose. Honestly, in most assets, I guess they're better, but I think I just think they're gonna struggle. They're in a bit of a dark time right now. There's really nobody there to carry the offense. I really like Mackenzie Weegar, but Dustin Wolf, I think the struggles might continue. I think we need a hot take here and there, so I have Calgary below some other teams that you guys might have there.
That's crazy to me. I think it's undoubtedly San Jose. Yeah, they get Celebrini first overall. Yeah, they have young pieces. When you look at their team and it's full of young guns. Like
Yep.
it's Celebrini, Eklund. You have Will Smith, Bordelot. Like they have a lot of young pieces, and they're going to be good pieces eventually. But the thing is, eventually, not now, not this year, and they're still going to finish dead last in that division without a doubt in my mind. Like Calgary is not going to be good at all per se, either. But I don't think they're going to be as bad as San Jose. I think they still have a bit more structure to their team as far as like ready to compete now compared to San Jose. Not that they're trying to win now because obviously they're not. They don't have the pieces to do that, but they have more NHL established pieces, especially when you look at the back end like Mackenzie Weegar and Rasmus Anderson. Those are studs on their defense. And when you look at San Jose's defense, Cody Cece is listed as on their first pair, which is not good. I'm sure Nick can tell you from personal experiences.
Yes, I can.
Cody Cece, not even good on your third pair most of the time. So on your first pair, good luck with that, San Jose.
I don't know, man. He
Noah,
was
you
the
got anything
Oilers' best
else?
player in both game sevens. I don't know. Just want to point that out.
What else do you have to add about San Jose at eighth in the division?
Yeah. I mean, tenth. You mean, in the wild card race?
Well, yeah, that too. But we're just going through Pacific right now.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, yeah, they're just horrible. And like you
They're
said,
just
I mean, couldn't we kind of relate to them last season to Chicago? Like you got Bedard, okay, who cares? Bedard, like Macklin's gonna do his thing.
exactly.
He's gonna do 60 points, and that's it. And then that's the end of the story for San Jose. Then next year they'll get someone to play with Macklin. I mean, they actually have a lot of pieces. They're in a way better position than Chicago is, in my opinion.
I think that's fair to say. But
Yeah.
let's move on to seventh in the Pacific Division, where I have Anaheim Ducks. Do you guys agree with this or no?
No.
No.
I guess
No,
I'll go.
I've got to put San Jose low at some
I mean,
point.
yeah,
I
I
can't.
mean, you
Yeah,
two, yeah. Nick and
Yeah.
Justin better have San Jose
Yeah.
here.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I think both San Jose and Calgary are going to be bad, but I think you guys are forgetting about Will Smith a little bit. He's just as good as Celebrini, in my opinion. Uh, he's a very good prospect, Will Smith, and I wouldn't be shocked if in the future he is San Jose's number one guy. I just think Askarov is going to be better than Wolf at the end of the day. That's all it is for me.
That's
Yeah.
fair.
Jump,
Noah, what?
jump. No,
Oh,
no,
no,
I'm
go
gonna jump.
ahead.
I'm gonna jump off that real quick,
Yeah,
just because I have San Jose at 7-2.
yeah.
Askarov, I think, is once again going to be better than Wolf as well. I like the Tyler Toffoli edition, playing alongside Celebrini and Eklund. I think that's a sneaky first line. I'm higher on Eklund, I think, than maybe some. Um, they're going to be bad. There's no doubt about it. Like you said, Cody CC on your first line on defense is not good. He should not even touch the first line. Shouldn't even touch the second line realistically.
No.
So they're going to be bad, but I still think they're going to be a little bit better than Calgary.
Noah?
At 7, I have Seattle. I think I was saying this earlier, but they kind of remind me of like Utah, where like they have some guys who, their sophomore season just didn't really pan out as well as I thought they would. And also the Pacific Division, there's so many teams that are just so second tier, and there's only one team in my opinion that is first tier, and obviously get to that later. But I just think Seattle, Beniers, mm, like unless he gets like 100-point season, they need someone. Who's their guy? You know what I mean? Like who's
Right
their
now,
number one guy?
Jared McCann.
Jared
That's
McCann,
what I'm
Vince
saying,
Dunn,
right?
maybe.
So
Montour.
they're a 7 for me undoubtedly.
Yeah, I already mentioned it, but yeah, Anaheim is at 7 for me. I think they're gonna improve on last year in the last few seasons because they have the pieces to improve, but I just don't think that they're as competitive as some of the teams ahead of them. I really did go back and forth on whether or not to have Calgary this low at 7 because I do think they're also going to be bad, and I'll get to them very, very soon. But Anaheim, I just don't think they have what it takes to turn the page yet, per se. I mean, Alex Killorn is a good piece to have. He's a good veteran, but right now he's listed on the first line. That's not great. Troy Terry also on the first line. He's a good player, but probably prefer him on the second line. Mason McTavish is a great piece. Like Leo Carlson, Trevor Zegras, I think is a bit overrated. I think he's just a flashy highlight reel kind of player. Uh, Zellweger and Mintyukov on the back end, they're going to be phenomenal. They're going to be great, but with a lot of this Anaheim Ducks team, even in net, Lucas Dostal, he's going to be great as well. But I just don't think yet is the big thing. They're going to be good, just not better than a lot of teams this season. So
Mhm.
I got Anaheim at 7. But moving on to 6, Noah, who do you have laid in the 6th position?
I got Anaheim,
Yeah,
and
look at that.
so many guys who I thought they would be like top players in the league. I mean, I knew you already covered this, but Zegras, like he's just a highlight reel, and
Yeah.
McTavish. After the World Juniors, didn't we all think he'd just be this like number one center in the league? And he hasn't really taken that next step
No.
at all. And then at last 2 seasons,
He took a
and
bit of a step last year, but he hasn't taken that
Yeah.
big jump to be that first line stud.
well, he was being compared to Bergeron, wasn't he? In some
Yeah,
points,
in some fashion, yeah.
yeah. So I don't know. Like I just think that team is it just screams failure to me. Like you see, like, so many things were going up, and then it just ended up just flattening out on that team, and that's why I have him at 6.
I have him at 6 too. I'm I think higher though on them at 6. I really love their center core. I think you guys are overhating on Zegras a little bit. I think he's more than just a human highlight reel. I think there's 60, 65 point potential there per season with him on that second line. And they have Cutter Gauthier, who's gonna be a problem in the NHL. I think he's about to have a strong rookie campaign. I don't think it's going to be anything crazy. Like he's not going to be putting up 80, 90 points or anything. But the youth that Anaheim has, I think, is the best in the NHL. I think they have the best young squad, young pieces. Like you said, Zellweger, Mintyukov. I mean, McTavish is your third line center. That's crazy to me. I really like Anaheim, but you guys are right. They're still a year or two away from competing, so I have them at 6.
I have Anaheim in the same spot. I'm kind of with you, Nick. I'm a little bit higher on them, but they're still not going to be a great team. I think Mason McTavish did take a big step last year, and I think he's going to take another big step this year. He'll be most likely the first line center if it's him or Trevor Zegras. But yeah, you look at the centers. Trevor Zegras is the fourth best center on that team uh, in the future. I guess not right now, but in the future for sure. Uh, it's between them and the Sharks for who has the best group of young guys in the NHL, but I think they are definitely right there with them. I'd give it to the Sharks, but as of right now, I think Anaheim's a little bit ahead. I think that's why they're finishing a little bit further ahead than them in the standings.
So you guys all have Anaheim at 6. This is where I have Calgary, and pretty much just for the reason that I like San Jose and I like Anaheim as far as their futures, their young prospects. Like they have the pieces that are going to be great players and eventually make them great teams back into playoff contention. But I think Calgary still just has the pieces to just compete a little bit more now this season. They're gonna take a big regression. Like, don't get me wrong, they're gonna be a big regression. We'll see this once we get to my wild card portion of things, but I think the bottom of the Pacific is gonna be like very bad. Like, there's not too much separating for me personally. Calgary, Anaheim, and San Jose at the bottom 3 spots in the Pacific. So I've Calgary pretty much just edging out Anaheim and San Jose for the 6th spot in the Pacific. Like, I mean, right now they have Kadri listed as their third line center, and if that's how things play out, Kadri as a third line center is really good, and Kuzmenko is on his wing, and that's also not that bad. And then Uyghur and Rasmus Anderson, these are still really good, solidified NHL defensemen. When you look at the rest of their decor, I'm not going to get into that because it's pretty bad. And I think Dustin Wolf can have a good season. I think Dustin Wolf can be pretty good. I do think, like you said, Askarov, Justin, I think you said that you're taking him to have a better season than Wolf. I could see that happening for sure. But I think Wolf is going to be good enough to win Calgary some games. I think between Uyghur, Rasmus Anderson, and then if Huberdeau can somewhat improve on his last couple seasons there, I think Calgary can be slightly, just slightly ahead of Anaheim and San Jose. But let's move on to number 5. Noah, who do you got at 5?
Calgary.
There you go.
I don't know.
I feel like I keep doing this. I keep saying who my pick is, and then we move
Yeah.
on to the next one up, and you're just like, oh yeah, I have them.
Yeah, no, like the way I look at Calgary is I think you guys are underestimating them. Their lineup, their top 9 forwards are not that bad. Like
Yeah,
and I think they're way better than San Jose and Seattle, and Anaheim in my opinion. But I think Kuzmenko is his skill, his like raw skill is one of the best in the league. And a full season on Calgary, I think he can have like a breakout year. And this is like a stretch, but I think he can get like 85 points. If he plays on the line and gets power play minutes, maybe with Huberdeau, if they find a groove on that and on Calgary, they're just a deep team. And yeah, I'm not going to mention the defense because it's just horrible. They have one pairing, and then like you said, if Wolf has a good season, they can. I mean, at best at 5. I'm not going to like
yeah.
even if they perform at their best, they're not getting top 4. That's not even close. But 5 is the highest I'll put them.
So my 5, it might be a little surprising. I actually have the Golden Knights here.
Wow.
Yeah, might be a little
Wow.
surprising. They took a hit this offseason on their offense. I mean, Victor Olofsson is projected to be in their top 6, which, I mean, for all
Remember
the
how good he
Victor,
was beside Jack Eichel last
Yeah,
time,
like
though?
yeah, I guess, but like, I don't want to bet on something that's been, what, 3 years ago, 4 years old.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not a huge Victor Olofsson guy, and like, Is Mark Stone gonna play this year? Is he gonna get hurt after 20 games and come back in the playoffs? What's gonna happen there? Their defense is phenomenal. Don't get that wrong. Their defensive core is stacked, but the top six forwards is really what worry me. And besides Hurdle, Eichel, and what Stone,
Stone,
I don't know.
William Carlson.
Barbashev's not bad, but I'm very worried about them scoring this year. I think their defense is going to be great. They'll win games 2-1, 3-2. I don't think they're going to be blowing out anybody.
And Stevens is a big loss. You
Yeah.
know, like I can't believe years ago the Caps gave up a fifth rounder for him. Just that. It's a 1-for-1.
Crazy.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think they can make up for Stevenson though, but that leads me into my pick. I've got the Seattle Kraken right there, just missing out.
Yep.
The thing that Seattle has is they're deep. They're really deep on offense. Their third line right now is projected to be Eli Tolvanen, Yanni Gord, and Oliver Bjorkstrand. It's one of the better third lines in the entire NHL. And
Yes,
then
sir, it
their
is.
first pairing, Vince Dunn, Adam Larson. That's everything you can ask out of a first pairing. And then you have Brendan Montour there as well. There's a question mark in net, which is why I have him a little bit lower. But I think this is a real deep team. They might not have the studs. See what Jared McCann can do again this year. Maybe Matty Beniers takes a step. So you don't really have the studs, but they do have the depth, and that's why I have them where I do.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really much more I can add to what you said. You pretty much took everything I was gonna say right out of my brain, put it into words and said it out loud. Uh, like you said, that first pair is pretty good with Dunn and Larson. You mentioned Montour now on that second pair. He could be a big factor for them. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Uh, and he's going to be with Jamie Alexiak currently right now as the pairings are listed. That's a good defensive partner, a big defensive stay at home kind of guy for Montour to do his kind of rover and kind of be a bit more offensive minded. And like you said, the deepness of this team, it one of the deeper teams in the Pacific Division, really. It's just the top end talent that's lacking, and really, when you look at top end talent, it's like Jared McCann, and that's pretty much it. Jordan Eberle, Matty Beniers, maybe if you want to throw them in that conversation. But if Joey Decor can repeat what he did last year, there's no reason why this team can't be competitive. But let's move on now to four. Nick, who do you have sitting at fourth?
I got the Kraken. I mean,
I keep doing this.
yeah, you're really good at this, eh? I got the Kraken. I mean, you guys named why I kind of have them there. I guess unlike Las Vegas, I like their depth of forwards opposed to
Yeah.
Vegas's. All right, so that's why I have them at 4 instead. I think their goaltending is very similar. I think Decord and Grubauer. I'm not sold on Logan Thompson. I'm not. Or Aiden Hill, if I'm gonna be honest with you. Well, no, Logan Thompson left actually. Yeah, no, Logan Thompson left in free agency.
Yeah,
It's
Logan.
Aiden Hill now.
Yeah, Aiden Hill and Samsonov for Vegas.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Samsonov's gonna win the Vezina next season.
okay, no.
Sammy for Vesna.
I don't know about that, but I'm not sold on their goaltending back in Vegas, but it's very similar with Seattle. I do like their defense. I like you guys said, Dunn and Larson really good together. I think you could flip flop Vegas and Kraken. Wouldn't surprise me if Vegas makes it, Kraken's at 5, but you know, apples and what is it? Apples and oranges. Pick one.
Oranges.
Apples and
There you
I
go.
don't
pineapple.
know it's apples and oranges though. That's like apples and grapes because Vegas that low is kind of crazy still to me.
Really? Okay, okay.
Okay, no, what do you got there?
The Kings, I think you know what? A lot of people hate on them, and years ago they had this like incredible prospect pool. Everyone thought they'd be like the top team in the Pacific, and then now it's kind of just like what happened to all of them. But one guy that stands out to me, and obviously it's Quentin Byfield. I think
Mhm.
he'll take a bigger step, and him taking a bigger step is just kind of still keeping them at mediocrity. I think if he wasn't there, they'd be like top maybe sixth, seventh. But him and I think Kopitar's still a great defensive center. And you know, they still have a lot of great young guys and Trevor Moore, like I think I think Maple Leaf, like a lot of guys like that, they're just kind of surprise you throughout the lineup. But that's why they're at 4, because they're not gonna do anything better. But I'm excited to see what Byfield can do. I don't think he'll be better than like Lafreniere in that draft or Stutzla, but he'll be better this season.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just go right after you because I also have the Kings here at number 4, and not really going to waste my breath because you said most of the things I said. Similar to Seattle, though, I really like their forward depth, and defensively, they run a really good system. Gavrikov, Doughty, like Brand Clark might take a step. Joel Edmondson on the third pair. Like that's a big, grueling, tough defense to play night in and night out. So yeah, LA at 4 is a pretty safe bet for me.
Yeah, I'm with you too. I have the Kings at 4 as well. You mentioned the prospect pool. I can tell you what happened in the prospect pool is they traded them all away for Pierre-Luc Dubois,
Yeah.
Gabe Velarde, Alex Iafallo, and Kupari. Which yeah, that's a conversation for another time. But I think this is still a really good team. I think a lot of people just want Drew Doughty to fall off, but he hasn't yet. There's a bit of a question mark in net, but when you run the system they do, they turned Cam Talbot into one of the best goalies of the first half last year. So
Yeah.
I think that they'll be just fine. They run that 1-3-1 system, and that could carry them right into a playoff spot.
Yeah, moving on though now to number 3 in the Pacific Division. So once again, getting into the surefire playoff teams according to our standings for the 4 of us.
Yeah.
At number 3, I have Vegas, and I do agree to Nick's point that I do think they're going to struggle more than ever before with scoring, but I still think the team is deep enough and the defense is good enough, and the tandem of Hill and Samsonov will be above average in the NHL, especially in the Pacific Division, because I think the Pacific Division is the weakest in the NHL, to be honest with you. But yeah, they still have scores like Eichel and Stone and Hurdle. It's gonna be interesting to see what Hurdle does for sure in his first full season with the team. But yeah, that defense, Hannafin, Petrangelo, McNabb, Theodore, and Hague, Whitecloud, like Hague and Whitecloud have been playing together for a long time, and they're not top end guys. They're not really skilled guys, but they're familiar with each other because they've been with each other for a long time. So that defense is probably one of the best in the Pacific Division. So I think that'll kind of carry them a little bit. Also, Bruce Cassidy, phenomenal coach. 3 is pretty safe for me with Vegas.
Yeah, the thing with Vegas, especially with their defense, is they aren't the most skilled, but they're just a pain to play against.
Yes.
Petrangelo, McNabb, Whitecloud, Hague, they're all 6'3" or taller, and they're physical. The entire Vegas team is physical. Yeah, I have them in that same spot. I think Jack Eichel is going to have a great year. I am always high on Jack Eichel, and hate me all you want, but I'm a big fan of Jack Eichel. William Karlsson, they still have Thomas Hurdle. So they're one first, second, and third line centers are Eichel, Karlsson, and Hurdle in whatever order you want.
Yeah.
So they have offense still. You maybe don't love the winger depth, but I think this is still a surefire playoff team. They just won the cup 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't think there's too much to worry about in Vegas, despite the losses in the offseason.
Yeah, I mean,
No.
you want to go no or me? Who wants to go?
Yeah, I have a go. Okay, you go. You go.
Me? Okay, I got the Kings. I think the Kings have the best defensive centers in the league. I mean, it's Kopitar, Byfield, and Dano. You can't really get much better than that. Their their wingers are good. Like I like Kempe, I like Fiala, Brant Clark this year. I don't think anybody's ready for the Brant Clark season. I think Brant Clark's about to surprise a lot of people. I know he's a very highly touted prospect. There's a lot of hype around him, but I think he's going to even surpass that. Darcy Kemper, I expect to have a bounce back year too. Kings at 3, I feel like it's a safe pick. They don't succeed at anything, but they're not bad at anything. They're right in the middle. They're above average. You know, like out of 10, I give them a 7.
Fair enough. Okay, Noah, what do
Uh,
you got?
I'll go to the Edmonton Oilers. and,
Oh,
and the
Wow.
biggest reason why is I'm gonna pose a rhetorical question. Don't answer this. Why did the Oilers beat teams last year? And that was because, and the answer is because of their speed. And when you lose Warren Fogle, Dylan Holloway, Ryan McLeod, and then Broberg, those are like the 4 fastest. I mean, not Broberg, but those are the 3 fastest guys outside of McDavid on that team. So now that you lose them, they're a slow old team. And yeah, you have the best player in the league, but that's why I'm putting them at 3 because they're still going to make the playoffs, but they're not going to do as much damage as last season. And also, I'm not big on Stuart Skinner still. He had a good playoffs. Okay. Darcy Kemper had a good playoffs. He's not necessarily a top 10 goalie. So
Bro, Nick
that's
is
why
just
he's
Nick is
holding
biting
back
his
right now.
tongue, man.
yeah.
I mean, I highly disagree. You'll see that in the ratings later. But when I talk about Edmonton, we'll get there. We'll get there. It's okay. It's okay.
Uh,
Hey,
let's get there right now. Let's get there right now because I have Edmonton at 2. Uh, really good team, really deep team still. I really like the additions of Jeff Skinner and Victor Arvidsson. I think those are very solid second liners that they can implement with Draisaitl and probably better wingers than he's been accustomed to playing with in the past couple seasons. And obviously, you can't forget about Connor McDavid. He just kind of is the best player on the planet. I get not even I guess. I don't even know why I even went to say I guess.
Top
Most
10.
dominant, best player in the world. Deep team. Janmark, Henrique, and Connor Brown is listed as their third line. That's very respectable. I think they took a big hit losing Broberg, and I mean CC's not necessarily taking a big hit, but like he can play on your third line and be okay. But now that they have like Troy Stetcher and Ty Emberson listed in their defense, I don't like that as much as like a Broberg and CC for sure. Stuart Skinner, like Noah said, I still have question marks with him in that. I think he is a better goalie than some people give him credit for. And I think he proved that in the playoffs for sure. But he's still not a top 10 guy, really, in my opinion, in the NHL. So Skinner, I have question marks. Their defense have a bit of question marks. Really love what Chris Knobloch did last season. I'm excited to see if he continues to coach as well as he did last season. So Edmonton at 2, they almost won the cup last year. You can't have them lower than 1 or 2 in this division.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Kerwin. Remember, they were 1 goal away from winning the Stanley Cup a couple months ago.
Yeah,
Uh, and you had the best player in the world. The offense got a lot better. And yeah, there's a big question mark at defense. It's it's the goal for Edmonton here is just to get to the trade deadline, and then you add a right shot defenseman, which is going to be expensive, but you got to pay for it if you want to win a Stanley Cup. Yeah, you had Arvidsson, Skinner. I think the Oilers got better offensively, take a step back defensively, but you can fix that. And then it comes down to how Stuart Skinner plays.
Well, I don't have the Oilers at 2, so that
I
only
didn't think
leaves
so.
the that leaves the Vancouver Canucks at 2 for me. I mean, look, the Canucks they're a good team. They're gonna be fine. There really shouldn't be any worries. I mean, I have a slight one, but like I don't think it will be bad come the season. I mean, Thatcher Demko still seems a little roughed up, so I wonder if heading into the season he's not going to be 100% and might start off slow. And I think what Shelovs has also been battling a little bit of injuries right now too. I know the regular season's still a little bit away, but I don't know. It's just something. It's like a gut feeling, I guess you could say. Is something doesn't seem right there with the health of their goaltenders, but who knows? I think their defense kind of took a bigger hit than some are, you know, talking about. Like losing Zadorov was a pretty big hit. I mean, you have Carson Soucy and Tyler Myers on your second line. That doesn't scream great to me. Is it better than the Oilers' second line? Yes. But is it still a good second line? I don't think so. I offensively they're fine. I really like the Jake DeBrusk signing and Daniel Sprong. I mean, they got Daniel Sprong for cheap. I can't believe his agent let him sign that contract. But they'll be a good team. It'll be a battle between Vancouver and Edmonton, I think, for
yeah.
the whole season. And yeah, I just like the Oilers a little more. No bias.
Noah.
Vancouver is second, and like kind of just what Nick said, but the main reason for me is JT Miller, in my opinion, is the best player on that team. And a lot of people are gonna go crazy, be like Quinn Hughes, all this stuff, but I think he's turning into like Patrice Bergeron light, and like emphasis on the light, right? But the way he shut down McDavid in the second round was like he did the best out of all the centers he faced. McDavid faced Kopitar, Barkov, and Ben, and Miller did the best. And I just think he's so important to that team that if he continues to do what he did, and obviously Demko's a little bit more healthy later in the season, they can make second.
Yeah, I mean, that's my number 1 pick in the Pacific Division. That's the only team left for me to splurt out of my mouth here, and that's what I'm gonna do. Vancouver at 1. I like their depth. DeBrusk and Sprong are good additions for that second line. DeBrusk, a good puck retriever, a hard nosed player, knows how to play the right way, and underrated defensively as well, I think. And Daniel Sprong is a great shooter, especially if you play him along. Pedersen has a great shot too, but he is, I think, primarily more of a playmaker than shooter, even though he has a good shot. So Sprong alongside Pedersen could do wonders. Their defense, Hughes Hronek looked great last year. No reason that they shouldn't look great again. Carson Soucy, Tyler Myers is their second pair. That's a big physical shutdown pair. And then Thatcher Demko, one of the best in the league. The only concern I have with Vancouver is the health of Demko, like you mentioned, Nick. But from everything from coach to forward depth to star power to defense to goaltending, Vancouver covers all the bases. So one's a no-brainer for me for Vancouver in the Pacific. And I think it's the exact same way for you, Justin.
Yeah, it is the exact same way. I think they have a little bit less question marks than the Oilers do. I love the offense and the depth. Dakota Joshua down there. You've got like Teddy Bluger. Those are just guys you want in your bottom six. Quinn Hughes has established himself as one of the best defensemen in the NHL last year. And yeah, the big question is just Demko's health. If Demko's on top of his game, he's one of the best goalies in the league. If he's not healthy, then that's going to be a big problem for the Canucks. So I think you'll see another great year out of Elias Pettersson and the entire Vancouver Canucks roster, and they'll finish first in the Pacific.
Yeah.
Me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yep.
Vegas.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's
Yeah,
that's
how is
I don't
wild.
know
that
about that
crazy?
one.
That's wild.
Didn't we just name the best decor in the entire league like 3 minutes ago, and that's Vegas?
I don't know if
Yeah, but
they're in the entire league, but they're one of the better ones.
Who's better then? Who's better? All of you. Pull your answer.
Carolina's still pretty good. They lost some pieces, but they're still pretty good.
I think
Anyway,
Carolina.
let's not go through this. This is
Colorado.
a debate for
No.
another day.
I
Give
overall
your
Vegas, like quick answer. Vegas best decor. Eichel just incredible, and also I just think that the Pacific's lacking this year. That's just short.
That's
answer.
fair. That's a
Yeah.
fair point.
All right. Well, I got Edmonton. No shocker there.
No shot.
I mean, I don't.
Yeah, no way.
Yeah, Jeff Skinner to that team. Jeff Skinner might score 45 goals this year, and I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. No, hear me out. Hear
Yes,
me
it
out. Hear
is.
me
No,
out.
no, I
No,
actually
it's not.
agree
No,
with you.
no.
I agree with you.
Hear me out. You guys, we all talk here about how Zach Hyman is, McDavid Merchant. I feel like is a
A
common word.
product of.
Is like
A product of whatever. Let's say you add now Jeff Skinner, who offensively, shot wise, is 10 times better than Hyman. I'll be the first one to admit it. If you put Jeff Skinner on that first line with Connor McDavid, I don't see why he can't score 40, 45. Even if you put him on the second line with Leon, I still think you're getting 35 to 40. The defense, yeah. Besides the first pair, it's interesting. I mean, Ty Emberson, I think, is a little
Interesting is a
sneakier.
good way to put it.
Interesting is like it's scary, but Ty Emberson's interesting. If you look at the metrics, very good defensively, like excellent defensively. Offers nothing offensively. Like it's just a stone wall on the ice. But your Edmonton has the best forwards in the NHL. The best forwards, the best forward depth. I don't think it's close. The defense will be interesting, like I said, but Edmonton's just going to beat you 7-4. That's their game. They're going to score more goals than you.
I think I want to say something on the Jeff Skinner thing. Is the problem is McDavid can only pass the puck to one person at a time, so he can't get Zach Hyman and Jeff Skinner both 45 goals. So
that's a very good
let's
point. That's
let's
a
just
solid point.
yeah,
Well,
it's only one or
think
the other.
Well, I think Hyman might take a little bit of a, he might not have 50 goals again. Let's just say that.
I don't know. I feel like
It's a safe bet, I think.
all three of those picks from us. I mean, me and Justin with Vancouver, Noah with
Yep.
Vegas, and Nick with the Edmonton Oilers. I think they're all realistic. Vegas maybe a little bit less so than Vancouver or Edmonton, but I think they're all realistic. But fellas,
Yeah.
it's time to move on from just looking at the divisions standalone as Central and Pacific. And we've already ran a bit long here so far. So we're gonna do some lightning rounds, 2 lightning rounds. First, we're gonna go through the wild card, and then we're gonna do MVPs and X factors for each team in the Western Conference. And what I mean by lightning round is no explanation. I'm gonna ask, and you're gonna give, and we're gonna go. Ask, give, go. So we're going to start from the bottom of the wild card race in the West, work all the way up to the top two as our 2 wild card teams each to make the playoffs. So starting at 10th in the wild card, I got San Jose. Justin.
The Calgary.
Nick.
Calgary.
Noah.
San Jose.
San Jose as well? Okay. 9th in the wild card race, I have Anaheim. Noah.
Hawks.
Blackhawks.
Yep.
Nick.
Sharks.
Yeah,
Sharks.
you gotta have the Sharks there at some point.
Yeah, Sharks have to be bottom 2 in my opinion.
Yeah, that's where they're.
So yeah, Sharks, that makes sense. 7th, 8th in the wild card race, I have Calgary. Who do you have, Nick?
I got Anaheim.
Anaheim. Noah.
Calgary.
Justin.
I have Anaheim.
Seventh in the wild card race in the West. See, this is what I mean. Quickly, I said no explanations, but I think Calgary, Anaheim, and San Jose in the Pacific all finished lower than
Yeah.
Chicago
Yeah.
in the Central. So I have
I'm
Chicago
with
here.
you. I'm with you. I have Chicago as well. Same
Yeah.
reason.
Good pick.
I got Minnesota because obviously I'm lower on Minnesota than you guys.
So we're at 7 now?
Seven in the
Yeah.
wild card race.
Anaheim.
Anaheim. Okay, now 6 in the wild card race. I have St. Louis.
Yeah, I have Minnesota here as well. I don't think they'll be worse than Chicago, Nick.
Well, I got Chicago here, just a little flip flop there.
I got Minnesota.
Minnesota. Okay, 5. I have Utah.
I have Utah as well.
St. Louis.
St. Louis too.
Pretty similar here. Shocker.
Yeah.
Not really. 4th, I have Seattle in the wild card race.
That's where I have St. Louis.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
I got
Nick?
the Golden Knights.
Golden Knights.
I have Utah.
Utah. 3rd and the first team to miss the first cut from the playoffs. 3rd in the wild card race. I have Minnesota. Who do you guys got? Justin.
I wouldn't be shocked to see him get in, but I had the Seattle Kraken just missing.
There you go. Nick.
I got the Winnipeg Jets missing.
Wow. Noah.
I got the Kings missing it.
The Kings. I think I have Minnesota a lot higher than all 3 of you for sure.
Very high. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just missing for me. But number 2 and the last team in the West to make the playoffs is LA for me.
LA for me as well. Pretty similar.
I
Yep.
got Utah.
Yep, the Jets.
Utah. And the Jets for Mr. Nick,
I didn't
Noah.
do this, but yeah.
Wow, Utah's pretty high too for you, Nick.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm
That's pretty high. But first wild card position in the Western Conference, I have Winnipeg.
I have the Nashville Predators.
I got the
Nick.
Kraken.
Wow.
I'm high on the Kraken and Utah expansion teams, baby. I love this.
Kraken in Utah in
Mhm.
Wow, Noah.
I've already confused my list a little bit, sorry. But I have it written down as Preds, but I think I said earlier otherwise, but it's the Preds for me.
The Preds for you. Okay, that's fair. We got some pretty wild picks.